The moment the paramedic whispered, "Ma'am, we don't think she's going to make it through the night," something inside Emily Hayes shattered. She had always known this day would come eventually, the day she would have to say goodbye to the woman who saved her life before she even understood what a life was worth. Yet nothing in 27 years could prepare her for the sight of Margaret Alvarez lying small, pale, and fragile in a hospital bed that seemed far too big for her. The slow beeping, the dim lights, the oxygen tube, none of it looked like the woman who raised her with unshakable strength. Emily held her hand, feeling how light it had become, how fragile the skin was. "I'm here, Mom," she whispered through tears. "I'm not going anywhere." And she meant it. Because everything she was, every hope, every dream, every good thing, came from the woman now fading in front of her. Emily's story began long before she remembered, back in 1998, when she was a frightened 4-year-old lost in the foster system. She had been moved from home to home, each time losing more trust, more hope. When Margaret first saw her, Emily was sitting silently in a corner, arms locked around her knees like she was bracing for the world to fall apart again. "She looks like she's waiting to run," Margaret said gently. The social worker nodded. "She's been in 5 homes already. She doesn't talk much, but she's a kind little girl." Margaret slowly knelt in front of her, giving her space. "Hi, sweetheart. My name is Margaret. May I sit here?" Emily didn't answer. But she didn't run. That tiny act of stillness was enough to change both their lives. Over the weeks, Margaret learned how Emily preferred strawberry yogurt, slept with the closet light on, and woke from nightmares without making a sound. Love didn't fix her overnight, but Margaret was patient. She didn't need perfection, she just needed Emily to feel safe. When the adoption finalized months later, Emily became Emily Alvarez Hayes, no longer a drifting child, but someone's daughter. Growing up wasn't easy. Margaret was a single woman in her 40s who worked 2 jobs, daytime at a grocery store, nighttime sewing for extra money. Emily struggled with trust, anger, and fears she couldn't explain. But through every meltdown, every tear, every setback, Margaret stood steady. When kids teased Emily about being adopted, Margaret told her, "Family isn't formed by blood. It's formed by love." When Emily wanted to drop out of school at 14 after being humiliated by a teacher, Margaret stayed up until 2 a.m. reassuring her, telling her, "You weren't born to quit. You were born to survive." And survive she did. Emily grew into a brilliant student, earning top grades and eventually becoming the first in her family to go to college. When she received her acceptance letter, Margaret cried harder than she had the day the adoption papers were signed. Emily left for college with a single handwritten note hidden in her bag: "You are my greatest gift." She kept it for the rest of her life. Years passed. Emily became a pediatric nurse, strong, empathetic, and steady, just like the woman who raised her. She bought a house, got engaged, paid off debts. For the first time in their lives, money wasn't a monster hiding under the bed. She begged Margaret to retire from the diner she still worked at for extra income. But Margaret only laughed. "I like being around people. Besides, keeps me young." Then came the phone call. The one that froze her world in place. "Your mother collapsed at work. We suspect heart failure." In the hospital, doctors explained the truth. Margaret's heart was failing rapidly. She needed a complex, rare, extremely expensive heart procedure, not fully covered by insurance, and the waiting list was impossibly long. Emily tried everything. Every doctor, every charity, every specialist. But the answer was always the same: too rare, too expensive, too late. She barely slept, barely ate. She sat beside her mother day and night, holding her hand, whispering stories, praying for a miracle she wasn't sure existed. One night, as the machines hummed in the darkness, Emily whispered something she hadn't since she was a small child: "Mom, please don't leave me." Margaret opened her tired eyes, squeezing her daughter's hand. "I'm not leaving you, sweet girl. I never did." The next morning, something unexpected happened. A doctor she hadn't met before walked in, a cardiac specialist visiting from another hospital. He had reviewed Margaret's scans and said something Emily hadn't heard in weeks: "There may be a chance." It turned out a patient scheduled for the same rare heart procedure had backed out, hours before their operation. A slot was suddenly open. The doctor said they were selecting the next eligible candidate. "Your mother is the best match," he said. "If you want the surgery, we need to move fast." Emily agreed so quickly her voice broke. There was still the issue of the cost, tens of thousands beyond her savings. But Emily didn't hesitate. She took loans, emptied her accounts, sold her car, she didn't care. "She gave me a life," she told the financial advisor. "Now it's my turn." The surgery was long. Hours felt like days. Emily paced the hallways, reliving every memory, every birthday cake Margaret baked from scratch, every note she wrote for school lunches, every hug, every, I love you, Mija. Finally, the surgeon walked out. She made it. The procedure went beautifully. Emily sobbed with relief. She rushed to the room where Margaret lay recovering, pale but breathing, stronger, steadier. When she opened her eyes, Emily whispered, "You're okay, Mom, you're okay." Margaret smiled weakly. "You saved me, sweetheart." Days passed, then weeks. Margaret healed faster than the doctors expected. She regained color, appetite, laughter. Emily visited every day after work, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with homemade soup, sometimes just to sit beside her. One afternoon, when Margaret was strong enough to sit up fully, Emily sat beside her and took her hand. "Mom," she said softly. "I have something to tell you." Margaret raised her brows. "What is it, honey?" Emily swallowed hard, tears gathering. "All my life, you gave me everything. You worked yourself to the bone to raise me alone. You sacrificed so much. You built my entire future with your hands. So, I bought you something." She pulled a small envelope from her bag. Inside were brand new house keys. Margaret blinked. "Emily, sweetheart, what is this?" "A house," Emily whispered. "A real home. Paid for. In your name. With a garden, and a porch, and sunshine all afternoon. You never had anything that was truly yours. So now you do." Margaret covered her mouth as tears poured down her cheeks. "Emily, I can't, this is too much." "No, Mom," Emily said, taking her face in both hands the way Margaret once did for her. "For 27 years, you gave me a life I never thought I'd have. Let me give something back." Margaret rested her forehead against Emily's, crying. "You already did. You became the woman I prayed you would be. And you," Emily whispered, "became the mother I needed more than breath." The day Margaret left the hospital, Emily drove her straight to her new home, a cozy beige house with a white fence, rose bushes along the front walk, and wind chimes gently singing in the breeze. Margaret stood frozen on the walkway, hand trembling over her heart, her new, strong, beating heart. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's yours," Emily said. "Everything here is yours." In that moment, the world felt full circle. A frightened child saved by a woman with nothing to offer except love, and ends with a miracle.